250 years ago, the United States won its independence in the Revolutionary War, and our journey as the United States of America began. But 250 years ago, I could not be standing where I am today. 250 years ago, women did not have the right to vote, to hold public office, to own property. 250 years ago, some women were property. 250 years ago, women were a footnote to the story of our country's founding. But today, 250 years later, women make up 125 members in the Congress, and the Democratic Women's Caucus is 96 strong. Women now make up more than 58% of college graduates, 40% of all businesses are women-owned, and more than 52 Fortune 500 companies are led by women. This kind of change did not happen by accident. It happened because our mothers, grandmothers, great-grandmothers, aunties, sisters, cousins dared greatly and forged new paths for us to walk. The freedom and privileges we enjoy today are because of those who came before us. These are their stories. Over the next hour, we will hear from women members across the country who share the stories of heroines who changed the course of history. I'm honored to yield now to the gentlelady from North Carolina, Ms. Deborah Ross.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Scholten. I rise today to honor former Ambassador Janette Hyde, who sadly passed away last month. A North Carolina native, Ambassador Hyde was a trailblazer who paved the path for generations of women in our state. Her contributions to our community span industries, from her time as a social worker and teacher to serving as the first woman on the North Carolina Board of Transportation. She was an active philanthropist, never forgetting her roots, and always giving back to North Carolina causes and organizations. It's especially meaningful to celebrate her legacy during Women's History Month. As a leader and an influential advocate, she pushed for ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment and women's full participation in the political process. She never gave up on her vision of an America where every woman has a chance to make her voice heard. At a time when women are facing unprecedented attacks from the Trump administration, we should all seek to emulate Ambassador Hyde's grit and grace over the next 4 years. Like Janette, we cannot back down in the face of threats to women's health care, accessible child care, equal pay, and more. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I yield back.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. I now yield to the gentlelady from Minnesota, Dr. Morrison.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, as we recognize Women's History Month, I rise as an OBGYN in fierce defense of our nation's moms and babies. Right now, the Republican majority in Congress is launching a full attack on America's families. Let's start first with where we are in our country. We are facing a serious and worsening maternal health care crisis. Just look at this map. In more than half of our country, women do not have a place to go that provides obstetric care. Among peer nations, we have both the highest rate of maternal deaths and the highest rate of infant deaths. In the United States of America, this is a crisis. It is an unacceptable crisis, and it demands immediate action from our nation's legislators. And yet the Republican majority is shoving a budget through that would gut Medicaid, which is the single largest payer of maternity care in our country, in order to give tax cuts to billionaires. As an OBGYN who has spent my life caring for women and delivering babies, let me tell you, it is unconscionable to threaten the care women receive before, during, and after pregnancy. But that's exactly what the Republican majority is doing with their budget. Republicans are choosing to shut down more hospitals and clinics across the country. Republicans are choosing to make even more of our country maternal care deserts. Republicans are choosing to take health care away from moms and babies. It does not have to be this way. So as we celebrate Women's History Month, I implore the Republican majority to make their policy match their pro-family rhetoric and choose to put America's moms and babies first. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you, Dr. Morrison. Clearly, Women's History Month is still, history is still being made this Women's History Month, as we have an unprecedented number of changemaker women from across the country who are standing up and fiercely defending their constituents. We are so grateful for their work in Congress. I now yield to the gentle lady from Maryland, Representative Sarah Ellsworth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Commander Janie L. Mines, the first African-American woman to graduate from the U.S. Naval Academy in 1980. Commander Christine Holderried, a Howard County native and the first woman to graduate as valedictorian not only from the Naval Academy, but from any service academies in 1984. Midshipman Kristen Dickman, a Naval Academy freshman and volleyball player who tragically passed away at the age of 19 in 2008. Her memory is now honored every single year for over the last decade via a tournament in her honor. Midshipman First Class Sydney Barber, the Naval Academy's first African-American female brigade commander, who earned that honor not even 5 years ago in 2020. I share these names and I share these stories because these are women and women of color who are an integral part of the rich history of the United States Naval Academy that I have the privilege of representing, but not just of the Naval Academy. They represent our military and proudly our nation. And so I want to be clear that this administration's unrelenting and reckless attack on the stories and the history of persistence, of diversity, of opportunity, only serves to set us back. When faculty at our 5 world-class service academies are told to avoid divisive concepts like racism and sexism, that only threatens to erase the stories and experiences of these brave women who just wanted to serve our great nation. I strongly believe that the Navy and Marine Corps we should have a Navy and Marine Corps who look like our country, where our midshipmen receive an education that teaches the accurate and full history of this nation, where the stories of women and people of color aren't skipped over because they are inconvenient. This is all critical to our national security and a strong democratic principles that we embody abroad. It is for these women and the hundreds and thousands more women serving our nation at home and abroad that I am here today. And with that, I yield back my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Ellsworth. Very, very well said. As the first woman in history to hold my seat in Congress, I am always thinking about the history-making women of the past, present, and future. I'm honored to highlight a few stories of history-making women Michiganders now. I'm honored to highlight Michigander Harriet Quimby, the first American woman to earn a pilot's license and the first woman ever to fly solo across the English Channel. Her career in aviation was short but accomplished, flying from the US to England, Mexico, and more. Harriet's legacy serves as a reminder that women can soar to whatever heights they set their mind to. We are so proud to claim that Sojourner Truth made her home in Michigan for the last 27 years of her life, a fearless abolitionist and a women's rights advocate who used her powerful voice to demand justice. Born into slavery, she escaped and dedicated her life to fighting for freedom and equality. Her famous "Ain't I a Woman" speech challenged the exclusion of Black women from the suffrage movement, leaving a legacy that continues to inspire generations. Anna Howard Shaw was a trailblazer in every sense of the word, becoming one of the first female ordained ministers in the United States and later a physician. She dedicated decades to the fight for women's suffrage, serving as the president of the National American Women's Suffrage Association. Her leadership and relentless advocacy helped secure the right to vote, proving that determination and conviction, as well as persistence, can change the course of history. Clara Arthur, known as the mother of the playground movement, believed in creating a better world for future generations. As president of the Michigan Equal Suffrage Association, she worked tirelessly to advocate for women's voting rights. Her activism extended beyond the ballot box. She championed education, labor reforms, and public spaces for children, ensuring that progress didn't just mean progress for some, it meant progress for all. Lucia Voorhees Grimes was a dedicated suffragist who played a pivotal role in Michigan's fight for women's voting rights. As a leader in the Michigan Equal Suffrage Association, she traveled the state, organizing campaigns, educating voters, and pushing for legislative change. Her unwavering commitment helped pave the way for Michigan women to claim their rightful place in the democratic process. These are the stories of past history makers who have changed the course of our nation. The freedoms we enjoy today are because they refused to sit idly by. And now, as we see unprecedented attacks on our healthcare, on our rights, we also see everyday women, especially in places like my hometown in Grand Rapids, Michigan, who refuse to sit quiet. I refuse to stand by while Republicans, Donald Trump, and billionaires like Elon Musk try to gut essential programs like Medicaid, a lifeline that millions of families rely on. No parent should have to choose between their child's health and paying their bills. We are fighting to protect the care that women and families depend on because health care isn't a privilege for the wealthy. It's a right for everyone. I want to highlight to you a brave mom from my district, Abby Karoma, a mother of 2 visually impaired daughters who depend on Medicaid. Without this critical program, Abby would be forced to make impossible decisions, whether she has enough in her bank account for treatments that could save her children's vision or putting food on the table. No parent should have to face that choice. But Republicans in Congress right now, aided by Donald Trump and Elon Musk, are willing to rip away this essential health care from families like Abby's just to hand out more tax cuts to the ultra-wealthy. We won't let it happen. We are the women who are standing in the gap and standing up for these families. We will fight every day to protect Medicaid, to stand up for families who depend on it, and to make sure that no one in this country is left wondering whether they can afford the care that they need for themselves or their families. I stand here today so that no one has to wonder who they have fighting for them. We are here, standing together, fighting for the families across the country. Thank you to the women who joined me here today to stand up and highlight the powerful women of their home states and the impacts that they have had on changing the course of history. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.